All right, let's talk about one of the weirdest feelings the human mind can cook up. You know the one. That super strange, kinda spooky sensation that this exact moment has happened before. Yep, we're talking about déjà vu, and today we're going to unpack what's really going on with your brain's most fascinating little glitch. So, picture this. You walk into a room for the very first time, but every single detail feels intensely familiar. Or you're in the middle of a conversation and suddenly you feel like you know exactly what the other person is about to say. Sound familiar? Trust me, you are not alone. The name for this feeling, déjà vu, actually comes from French, and it literally means already seen. And honestly, it's the perfect name for that baffling feeling of reliving a moment that you know for a fact is brand new. And get this, it's not some super rare thing that only happens to a few people. Nope. Research shows that around 60% of healthy people have this experience. It's a surprisingly common feature of being human, which just makes you wonder even more. Why on earth does it happen? Okay, so to figure this out, we've got to pop the hood and see what's happening inside the brain when this memory glitch strikes. Scientists have a few competing ideas, so let's dive into the top theories that try to explain this strange sensation. So the first big theory is something called split perception. The basic idea here is that your brain has a tiny little processing hiccup. It takes in all the info from a single moment, but for some reason it registers it as two separate events, which creates that false sense of having been there before. Let me break that down for you. Imagine you're walking down the street and you glance at a building really quickly. Maybe you're distracted by your phone. That's perception number one, almost subconscious. Then, a millisecond later, you look up again and give it your full attention. For a split second, your brain gets confused. It flags that second look as an old memory, and bam, you get hit with that classic déjà vu feeling. Okay, another really popular idea is the brain circuit malfunction theory. I want you to think of this like a tiny electrical short in your brain's incredibly complex wiring. The circuits that handle memory just get their signals crossed for a second, and a brand new experience accidentally gets stamped with the "I've already done this" label. Now, this kind of glitch can play out in a couple of ways. On one hand, you have a timing problem. The part of your brain that knows this is happening now and the part that says, "I remember this from before," fire off at the exact same instant. Or it could be a filing error. A new short-term memory accidentally takes a shortcut straight into your long-term memory bank, tricking your brain into thinking it's an ancient memory. But, to get to what might be the most complete explanation, we really have to look at the work of Dr. Anne Cleary. She is a powerhouse researcher in the field of human memory, and she's published a ton on these weird memory phenomena. So, Dr. Cleary's theory is a little different. She suggests déjà vu is all about familiarity without recollection. It's not a glitch happening in the present moment. It's actually your brain making a connection to a past one. So a new situation might share some features with an old memory, like maybe the layout of a restaurant is similar to one you saw in a movie once. Your brain recognizes the familiar pattern, but it can't quite pull up the original memory of the movie. All you're left with is that powerful, unsettling feeling of familiarity without knowing why. So we've got all these great theories, but what's the actual physical evidence? Well, let's take a tour inside the brain itself and see how scientists are zeroing in on where this feeling actually comes from. And this is where it gets really mind-blowing. Researchers working with epilepsy patients have discovered that they can actually trigger the feeling of déjà vu on demand. All they have to do is apply a tiny electrical current to very specific parts of the brain. And we even know the exact addresses. A study back in 2004 found that if you stimulate a region called the entorhinal cortex, which is a huge hub for memory, patients report that classic already seen feeling of déjà vu. But if you stimulate the area right next door, the pararenal cortex, they just get a vague sense of reminiscence. That's a massive clue that we're looking in the right place. And it's not just about zapping the brain. MRI scans are also giving us an incredible window into the brains of people who experience déjà vu. These studies are showing us that there might be subtle, physical differences in the way their memory systems are built. So a 2018 study found some really fascinating patterns. It turns out people who get déjà vu a lot tend to have slightly less gray matter in some of these memory regions. Now, the critical thing here is that this pattern doesn't match what doctors see in epilepsy. This suggests it's not a sign of a disease, but more that certain parts of the brain might just be naturally more prone to these little memory mix-ups. So the takeaway here is all about increased vulnerability. It's not about damage. It's just that for some of us, certain parts of the hippocampus might be structured in a way that makes them a little more likely to accidentally trigger these powerful feelings of false familiarity. Okay, for most of us, most of the time, déjà vu is just a fascinating, harmless brain quirk. But it is important to know when it could be a sign of something more serious. So let's talk about how to tell the difference. So the main thing to be aware of is when déjà vu isn't just a one-off feeling, but a recurring symptom of something like temporal lobe epilepsy. In that case, the feeling of déjà vu is actually part of a focal seizure, which is just a brief storm of abnormal electrical activity in one part of the brain. The real key is what happens with the déjà vu. If it shows up with friends, like hallucinations, sudden mood swings, nausea, or repetitive physical tics that you can't control, that's when it becomes a red flag. So here's a super simple guide. Normal déjà vu is quick, it's fleeting, it happens rarely, and it's a solo act. It happens all by itself. But if you're getting it more than once a month, if it's really upsetting you, or if it comes with any of those other symptoms we just mentioned, that's when it's probably a good idea to chat with a doctor. So, after all that, after looking at the theories and the neuroscience, what's the bottom line? What really is déjà vu? Well, probably the best way to think about it is as a familiarity false alarm. It's your brain's amazing, super sensitive pattern recognition system, just misfiring for a second. It detects a tiny hint of something familiar and pulls the fire alarm, even when there's no actual memory to be found. So, far from being some mystical or paranormal thing, déjà vu is just a beautiful, harmless quirk of our own biology. It's a tiny hiccup that gives us this rare peek under the hood at the incredible, complex machine of human memory, and it shows us just how it pieces together our sense of the past and the present. And that leaves us with one last, really big question to chew on. This little glitch proves that our brains can create a powerful, convincing feeling of a memory that never actually happened. So, what does that say about all the other memories we hold on to so tightly, the ones we are absolutely sure are real?